All right, good afternoon again, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the CTSC for our 2024 Black History Makers webinar series. We are very fortunate that you are spending this time with us, but before we begin talking about the lovely women who will be engaging in conversation and really presenting us with all of the learnings, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the CTSC. The Clinical and Translational Science Collaborative of Northern Ohio is a collaborative among Case Western Reserve University and its affiliated hospital systems, the Cleveland Clinic, Metro Health, University Hospitals, and the Lewis Stokes Veterans Administration Medical Center, Northeast Ohio Medical University, and the University of Toledo. We aspire to be a catalyst for high-quality clinical and translational science and transformative research to positively impact the health of those in Northern Ohio and beyond. So you did hear a little bit from our moderator before we started, but I want to tell you a little bit more. We have Jazmin Long, President and Chief Executive Officer of Birthing Beautiful Communities. Jazmin is a dedicated and passionate community leader with a proven track record of developing strategic relationships and driving community impact. As President and CEO of Birthing Beautiful Communities, she works to achieve positive birth outcomes for Black families despite the racial disparities in maternal and infant health in Cuyahoga County, which has had some of the worst infant mortality rates in the nation for more than a decade. And Jazmin seeks to change that. And now, our Black History Maker of the hour, we have Kimberly Seals Allers. We're going to share a little bit about her before we begin the formal presentation and Q&A. Kimberly Seals Allers is an award-winning journalist, 5-time author, international speaker, strategist, and advocate for maternal and infant health. A former senior editor at Essence and writer at Fortune magazine, Kimberly is a leading voice on the racial and sociocultural complexities of birth, breastfeeding, and motherhood. She is the founder of IRTH, a new Yelp-like app for Black and Brown parents to address bias and racism in maternity and infant care. Kimberly also created Birthright, a podcast about joy and healing in Black birth that centers on positive Black birth stories as a tool in the fight for birth justice and reverses the narrative of negative statistics common in mainstream media coverage of Black maternal health. You can learn more about Kimberly at KimberlySealsAllers.com. And you can also follow her on @IamKSealsAllers on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Ladies, the floor is yours.
All right, good afternoon, Kim. I'm sorry, I lost you for a second. Good morning, Miss Kimberly Allers. It is so nice to see your beautiful face. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing well. Great to see you as well, Jazmin. Thank you all so much for having me.
So I know that you know this work like the back of your hand, and so I wanted to give you a moment to kind of set the stage for us to really talk about what this journey has been for you. And so, I know that there are two ways that we can go with this. We can go conversational. I can give you an opportunity to do a little bit of a presentation and to really set the stage, which I think will be really nice. I'm going to give you that opportunity, and then we can go with some of the questions that have been prepared.
Sure. Tell me what you would like for me to share about. Shall we talk about IRTH? You want to talk a little bit more about my broader journey in Black maternal infant health?
Yeah,
Black
I
breastfeeding?
think it.
What are we doing?
I used to how we want to go there. So I think, well, first let's do a level set. Let's talk about you. I think so often
Okay.
we talk about the work, but I think it's really important, especially as we have a lot of Black women around this Zoom. Let's talk about you.
Yeah, so, I come to this work as a journalist by trade, as was mentioned. I have a passion for storytelling. My most important job is mother, and I have 2 children. My oldest is a recent Spelman graduate, and my son is now a sophomore at Amherst College. And so mothering changed my life. I kind of saw myself as a career person and not really into children. Thought they were cute, but really motherhood changed my life. It really activated me around my own advocacy. It became the springboard for a number of things around obviously my books and my life's work. And, I was having a wonderful career in journalism and doing all those things, and became pregnant and didn't care about any of that stuff anymore. And so I really look at motherhood as a lens, not just for my personal journey, but also through my work, but also and for our society. And, it's been a wonderful experience.
Was there kind of a pivotal moment? I love the journey of motherhood, and we think about that as you do this work. And I often get asked when I'm doing my work around infant mortality, what is the role for someone who is not a parent in this work? But as you were a child and as you were even a journalist, I think that storytelling becomes so important because so much is how we frame the messaging of what we do. Is there something in your childhood that even now, as you look back, that you may say, wow, that was a pivotal moment that I didn't think then sparked an interest that still lives with me now?
It's such a great question. I think, I wanted to be a journalist since I was 8 years old. So I've always had a passion for writing. I've always had a passion for storytelling. Probably my earlier writings were poetry. I also produced a community newsletter. That's what I thought it was. It was a little bit trashy, a little gossipy, not my best journalistic work, but I started writing about happenings on my block, and I would type it up and hand it out to the neighborhood. Um, but I think that, I was a weird kid, and I've written this kind of in one of my forwards to, I think, my fifth book, that, I was into bird watching. I, had a stamp collection. I, again, wrote a newspaper for the block. Nobody asked me to do that. My mother has tapes of me having my own radio show where I was literally the host and the guest. So I was an interesting child. So, but my parents never made me feel weird, right? My dad grew up in the segregated South. My mom grew up in Brooklyn. They never made me feel weird. Now, my sister made sure I knew I was weird every day, but my parents, always nurtured me. My dad, if I was into bird watching, he would buy me binoculars. He bought me a notebook so I can write down the things that I saw. He would grab his daily news, the regular newspaper, and drive me to places so I could watch birds. And he would just sit there and read the newspaper. Let Kimberly be Kimberly in her world. And I think that really helped me feel like, one, my father was my first and biggest cheerleader. He made me believe I could do anything, and that my ideas were not strange, right? I wasn't weird, and that they were valid, and that they were worthy of support. And these are the things that I think were things I took for granted as a child, but really grew to appreciate as really helping me grow as a woman, as an entrepreneur, as a visionary, as an advocate, as a person who creates things and likes to see them through. And so I think that was really important. I want to just honor that I'm in Montgomery, Alabama for the Mothers of Gynecology Conference right now. So I'm in the quietest space to be in conversation, but it's a beautiful environment. So I'm going to apologize when the background noise gets a little bit beyond me. But I think that was really a real critical.
Bringing that up, what does it mean to be a Black woman in 2024 to be able to do this kind of work that we do? And and bear with me as I say this, right? 2020 happens. The murder of George Floyd happens. And we have people now, we've been shouting it from the rooftops, right? This work is not new. This has been happening for our community for 400 years plus. Gynecology, modern gynecology was built on the uteruses, on the uteri of Black women, right? Literally and figuratively. But now we're being heard in a different way. And there are promises made in 2020. Some of them we're seeing are empty promises that are not coming to fruition in 2024. But some that we've been able to move the needle, we've been able to get some funding. Um, some of that funding has remained constant, some of that funding has gone away. But what does it mean to be a Black woman in 2024, to have been able to stand in our truth, to walk in our power, and to say that racism is exactly what is causing the health disparities that we're seeing, to be bold, to be unapologetic and to just say what needs to be said and to deal with whatever those consequences may be, but to speak truth to power. What has that meant in this time?
You know, it's a lot. It's still not easy. But I do think that what it does is that we have more voices. You know, when I wrote my first book came out in 2007. And at the time, nobody was really talking about racism in this care. It was like when I was doing the research for the Mocha Manual to a Fabulous Pregnancy, which was my first book with HarperCollins, there was like very nascent conversations. Dr. Fleta Mass Jackson was like the only person really doing research down at Emory. And so we weren't having this robust conversation right now. When I started the Mocha Manual and started writing about the ways that motherhood was different for Black people, they were coming for me, you know, like, how dare you say that that grace is an issue? And so it was an unwelcome conversation. So one of the things I think has changed is like there are more of us saying that, right? And that for me is positive. Are there more people listening? Are there more people funding and resourcing Black women-led organizations? That part needs to continue increasing and improving because we're still being underrepresented when we look at the funding things. So I think the chorus of Black women and other people in this space who are talking about this issue has grown. We're having outside conversations, right? As my girlfriend says, we used to talk about white people. Now we talk about white people and we just say it out loud, right? And so, you know, having that out loud conversation about the impact of bias and racism is really important. But I also think the danger is that as, you know, attention grows, money comes to the space. Now you have white organizations looking to come into the space. They haven't been here the ways Black folks have been leading this work. They often have the infrastructure and resources to tap into larger funding. They often attach themselves to Black organizations really as a token, in a tokenized way. And now that there's money coming to this work, you see a lot of folks being drawn to this work who were not interested in this work before there was money in it. And that's a great concern. You know, we can look at both sides, like the good news around more people having this conversation out loud, but also understanding what that brings. And then for me, that also highlights the need for those who see themselves as true allies, what that really means, right? What that really means when we're talking about power, access to capital, money, grants, whatever it is, what that really means to be an ally. And it's not about taking, it's about ceding power and redistributing resources and making sure that those who actually are closest to the issue are the ones being supported to solve it.
This is why I admire you so much. And my next question kind of goes along, and I'm going to put a pin in something that I'm taking my notes over here because we might come on research if we have time. If not, I'll save that for an email to you and a follow-up. What's your, and this is probably so hard to quantify, but what are you most proud of at this point in your career?
Well, career-wise, the thing I'm most proud of is my children. And this is connected to work because my children have been a part of my journey. I'm very proud that they've seen me create a life around doing work that's meaningful to me. You know, I'm divorced, and so my children have seen me kind of pick myself up from the floor, right? And decide to leave a place like Essence and a large, you know, entity, and with a dream that I could stand on my own 2 feet. You know, I literally left my job because, you know, I could not figure out how to do the work that I love and be the mother that I wanted to be, right? I remember I was just sharing this with my team. The day I decided I had to leave my job, I was at my office at Essence in New York City. I had a house on Long Island, so probably about an hour and a half commute on the train. And I was blessed to have someone at my home, a nanny who's helping me with my children when I went back to work full time. And I remember getting this phone call in the afternoon, and it was my neighbor. And she was outside with my oldest, and I could hear my oldest child crying because my nanny did not come out to meet the bus, right? So inside the house is my baby boy, who's probably about a little bit over 12 months. I stayed home with him for a year. Outside the door is my daughter, who's maybe about 4, and the neighbor, not even my good neighbor, and they're banging on my door because the nanny hasn't come out to meet the school bus for my daughter. And, you know, where's my baby? This person that I'm paying to take care of my children, why didn't she go to the bus? What's happening inside this door? And that, I'm giving myself goosebumps. That feeling of helplessness, there was no way that I could get from my office. You know, if I got into a car, it would take me an hour at best, you know, no traffic, New York City, right? And, you know, I said, I can't, right? Like just that feeling of being helpless and being at the mercy of work when I was going through a traumatic time. And so I really made a decision that day that I couldn't continue to do what I wanted to do work-wise and still be present, among other things. But that was really a pivotal decision. And I want to say that because I know so many times we are forced to make decisions around our careers and our mothering journeys because our society is only paying lip service to parenting and not truly supporting us to actually do both, right? And many of us make very hard decisions. And I always tell people, because, you know, of course, my dad, who was very proud of me to kind of, you know, be the first person in my family to graduate college. I got a master's degree from Columbia. I was working in, you know, with big names in media, and I decided to walk away. And for me, the risk of not being there for my children was scarier than the risk of leaving my job, right? And so everyone has to redefine risk for themselves. I always talk about that. But for me, the risk, people like, it's risky to leave a job. I got it. Yes, that is correct. But for me, in that moment of my life, the risk of not being present for my children was that was the risk I was unwilling to take. I was clear I could probably find another job, but if I missed this opportunity to be present for my children during this divorce transition, that I couldn't see, right? And so I redefined risk for myself and decided to take the risk that was more important for me. And so we all have to do that, right? That's part of, you know, what people who choose a parenting journey do. And so I think that was really important and helped shape my sensibility around supporting people to one, so they don't have to make those tough choices, and for me to build a life that allowed me to be the mother that I wanted to be.
Thank you for that. Lynette, did you have a question?
I did. Thank you so much for hosting this and for being here and talking to us about this. This is a really sensitive topic, I think, and going back into this idea of us being professionals in this space. For me, my mother lost a child, and so it was my first experience as a child myself, realizing that infants die. They don't come home sometimes. And then to be an adult mother and go through a geriatric pregnancy, which was high risk, and to have multiple miscarriages. And to have my concerns, my daughter's 7 years old now. I have 2 daughters, one's 27 and one is 7. But the 7-year-old, that pregnancy was rough. And to have the healthcare providers at that time not qualify and validate my concerns around these experiences was tough. And so now to be in a space where I'm a researcher, I work on health disparities and things like that, I find myself sometimes it's very hard to carry that, those real life lived experiences and that hurt. And then also try to stay, professional and objective. And I would wonder, like, what is your advice for us? I mean, I tend to work in cancer, and I think maybe sometimes I shy away from, this, but I'm trying to make sure that I address health disparities in many different aspects. But because we live these traumas too, when we see those statistics, a lot of times that's us, that's our families, that's our loved ones. How do you manage or suggest that we, carry both of those kind of wear both of those hats.
Well, I just thank you so much for that question and for sharing your personal story. I really appreciate that. And I think I'm wondering why we have to, right? Like, who told us that we, like, I think, especially as Black women, we've had this thing where we can't be our authentic selves at work. And I just don't want that for any of us, right? Like, no, be your authentic self. And actually, that makes you better at your research. That makes you better at your job. And I'm always wondering, white people have brought themselves into everything that they've done. It's baked into everything. Like, there was a beautiful presentation around the fathers of research, right? Which was, white male dominated men who really set the standards. They determined what research was valued, whose voices were not valued, what made a randomized trial the thing versus listening to people's voices. It's all made up, right? And so when we think about the history of research, and we think about the ways that it has, continued to perpetuate systems of oppression, the ways that patriarchy, white supremacy have been embedded into research. When you think that there was literally research that said that Black people don't experience pain the same way, though, that was literal research. So I'm not really sure if there's a need to separate yourself. And for me, that's an opportunity to lean in, like that proximate knowledge, be able to know how important your work is because you know people who need to benefit from it, whether it's about cancer, whether it's about maternal health, you name the health issue. We're dying more from it, I promise you. So there is no area of health research that doesn't need more Black people and brown folks with lived experience, with real aunties and mothers. That is how the work actually becomes meaningful, in my opinion, and impactful. Research has kind of been in a storied place. It has not been fully connected to people. And that is why, in my opinion, these disparities continue to exist, right? What is the opportunity for researchers for research now to be rooted in the lived experience of those who are actually dying most from any health issue as the way forward? That is the only way forward, as I see it, right? So I would offer one, from a research perspective, lean in, because that other way hasn't gotten us anywhere. So the possibility in front of us to fully embed our lived experience in our research approaches and how we respond and all those things is an incredible possibility, number one. Number two, take care of yourself, right? Because we are more personally attached to the research. And so you have to make sure that you find your ways to take care of yourself because it can be heavy. So those are the two things I want to say, but I think we should lean in. I think we just got to lean in and bring our full selves, bring our communities. When you go to work, you don't get to go to work by yourself because your auntie's on your back and your community's with you and the ancestors are with you. So there's nothing we can do about that anyway. So you might as well just lean in. I hope that was helpful. That is just the way that I see it.
I thank you. I feel like I'm all in. I just think that we try not to become the women that burn out because there's so many of us doing so many great things. But I also think that we have to, like what you said, take care of ourselves. There's certain things that we have to process and deal with as well. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, and make sure you have space to do that, This is really important. I let everybody know that, my therapist is doing the Lord's work, trying to keep me holy. She out here doing the Lord's work, okay? So when I think about what every Black woman needs, is particularly those working in those types of environments, like, where's your team? That includes your, your girlfriends, right? That includes the aunties in your life, the older folks that you go to for support. For me, that includes a therapist. Like, how do you create the team that can support you in your journey? Because you're absolutely right. We have to take care of ourselves. We have given so much to this field, like literally, as Jazmin mentioned, our bodies, our intellectual capacity. We give our energy because we care. And if we're not taking care of ourselves, it's not going to go well for us. So I'm big on that. I think that we need to lean in to that. that doesn't necessarily mean the spa. That could just mean having 30 minutes to sit by yourself. And I want to say this as a mother, because I think we often, I never really subscribe to like this martyrdom version of motherhood where you got to give everything. Because what I learned, particularly as a single parent, was that if I'm not good, my children aren't good, right? And so
Mhm.
understanding the connection between our own well-being and our family's well-being, and to say, I need 30 minutes, and to teach your children to value you. Like, they can't see you as a machine either. The children have to understand, no, mommy needs 30 minutes and I'm going to sit in this room by myself and you're not going to knock on the door. I don't know if you saw this on social. There was a funny thing that I used to do with my children, like on Saturday mornings, don't wake me up. And I tell you, unless someone is bleeding profusely, and I define what profusely means, they know Saturday morning was my lie-in time. So Friday night, I'm going to put the milk on a shelf that you can reach. You've got your cereal. I'm going to review with you your breakfast options, what you could watch on television. I'm going to get you set up for success. But Saturday morning was mommy's time, and don't come knocking on my door unless there's a real emergency, right? And I remember waking up and my son, his finger would be underneath my door, just trying to stick his finger underneath the door. He wouldn't knock, but he was just checking. But for me to teach them that I needed my time, and I think this is our work to do, right? For us to teach our children that we need time, and they need to give us that so that we can be a better version of ourselves for them as well. And so I just want to offer that to all the mothers who may be present, to think about how we're teaching our children to see us as humans, right? Because we can't go around saying that we want to be seen as whole people and we're not machines if we don't teach our children, as well as other loved ones in our lives, to treat us as such, right? And so just want us to own the part that we can do. And for me, that included making sure my children understood that I needed my time.
Kimberly, I think this will be a nice opportunity to segue into the Earth app.
Yeah, I think, thank you so much for that opportunity. You know, Earth, I would, just because we're talking about parenting and mothers and things like that, Earth began as a mommy and son project, right? I had this idea for really what began as a story bank. I was traveling a lot between my books and my work with the Kellogg Foundation, my breastfeeding work, when I was doing my first food-friendly communities. But I was always hearing the same stories, whether I was in Detroit, Philly, New York, West Coast, whatever. And as a journalist, my first thought was, how can I put all these stories together? And then I began iterating on it, like, what else could it do? And I thought maybe this could be an app. My son is a crazy math and coding kid, and as my father did for me, I have sent him to every camp that he wants to go to, right? And so I said to myself, maybe this is something we can work on together, because he was into coding and he would come back from these camps talking things I don't know one word. I'm like, mama is not of that brain, son. But he was so excited. And so I said, maybe we do this together. So my son and I started going to app development classes together. He must have been 13 at the time. And it was this our project, right? How could we, mommy had this idea. And so he did the first wireframes for Earth. And we would take these to hackathons and pitch competitions. We practice, you only have a minute. We do the birth, he throw away the bee. We had a thing, right? And then when we were at MIT, for one, was our first kind of big win. And those folks took my son's wireframes and they turned it into a mobile prototype that I was able to use to go start to raise funds for grants. And so that is really the backstory of how Earth came to be. And I'm really proud of it because, as a nonprofit platform, we are the only place for Black and Brown women and birthing people to find and leave reviews of their OBGYNs, birthing hospitals, and pediatricians. We are all about crowdsourcing and publicly sharing where we're getting good and where we are not. When we think about all the things we're doing for health equity and birth equity, we believe that accountability and community accountability and transparency have been missing, right? On the back end, we turn these reviews into data to work directly with hospitals, payers, and providers. What could we learn, right, from the living? Instead of waiting for another tragic Black maternal death for a hospital to be like, uh-oh, we got problems, we can learn from the living. The problem has been for hospitals is that they don't have enough quality experience data, right? Black and Brown folks are not responding to HCAPs. They're not responding to Press Keenies. And that is because of the earned distrust. And I emphasize it was earned. There's a reason why the community is distrustful of health systems, and we need to acknowledge that, right? And so when the community has a trusted place, a safe place, they will share their feedback. But the hospitals give up transparency. So right now we're working with 8 hospitals in 8 different states. We're about to start a 3-year project in California, 2 hospitals in LA, both public health departments in the Bay Area, UC Davis Medical Center in Sacramento. We've got Providence, Rhode Island, Women and Infants Hospital there. We are excited about the growth of our systems change work because we believe very deeply in holding systems accountable, right? Like we're not going to get there if we're not holding systems accountable. And unlike a lot of people who view Black and brown folk, particularly Black women, as victims of the Black maternity crisis, I'm powerful consumers, right? I was in senior management at Essence. I know how powerful Black women are as a consumer block and how much people wanted to market to us, how much people wanted us to get behind their ideas and their movements. So I know my people are powerful. We use technology to leverage that inherent power and to invite them in opportunity to inform and protect each other, and for us to provide data to health systems to help them change, right? We're building, we've built and are building the first national database of experiences of care for Black and brown folks for maternity and infant health, right? That is what IRTH is on the back end. And on the front end, it's a tool for us to rely on each other for advice and direction on where we get care. I always talk about IRTH as our digital green book. There was a time when our ancestors needed books and guides to help them travel safely. And IRTH is our digital green book for safe Black birth. It helps us know where other people like us say they're getting good care. And so this is the work that we're focused on now. I'm very proud of the way we're growing. We have over 20,000 users. We have reviews from 46 states. And we are here to say our community voice is powerful. We are not going away quietly. And when you think about the things that I am most passionate about, it is the power of my community and our ability to push for change when we are using our voices collectively. So I'm really excited. Thank you, Jazmin, for the support that you've offered in Ohio and beyond. And this is the way forward. This is the way forward.
I want to make sure that if there are any questions around the room that we get them addressed before Kimberly has to go. We have about 8 minutes or so left. But in the meantime, again, I'm excited to be in this space because we are doing, I always say this, it sounds, I guess anyone knows, it's revolutionary work because it's work that is, we're daring to be our most powerful selves because we're saying what we have to say. And to your point, we'll find jobs, right? I always joke, with my board, I can go work at Nordstrom, I can go work at Target, I'll get a job. I'll always be able to get a job. And you seem like that kind of woman that's like, I'll go work somewhere if I have to. I'll make ends meet. And so to that, I say, this is incredible, the platform that you're building. What does the legacy look like for you? What is legacy? I'm excited to hear as you talk about your babies and as you talk about them graduating college. And, I know they got some time to go, but what is legacy for you?
That's a beautiful question. I mean, I think IRTH is my legacy project because it brings together, technology and equity and accountability, right? And I think for us to build a platform that actually can make, health systems more equitable is hopefully part of my legacy, right? That we were an instrumental part in systems change, because I think there's a lot of conversation around what Black people need to do to have a safe birth, which is important, but it's not our job to save ourselves, right? The system has to be changed. And so I hope that our legacy and my legacy of systems change, right? And that we have started to hold hospitals accountable. Hospitals are very concerned about their IRTH reviews, and I'm excited about that. People name names in IRTH. I'm here for it. Like, these people are problems, right? If you're frequently mentioned, you are high risk. to a hospital, and we will let that hospital know that, right? And so how we're doing that, we're right now working on our payer strategy, really trying to come, we're going to be piloting a provider incentive plan that includes feedback from providers in the IRTH app, right? These are all things that are game changers for how we can hold systems accountable. I often say this, and I don't mind saying this, I don't know if hospitals care about Black people. I literally don't care. I'm done asking nicely. But I do know they care about their reputation. I do know they care about how much money they're going to make. I do know that they care about what payers think about their facility and their providers. So that is where we play. And so I hope kind of furthering that message is a big part of my legacy, that people know that we were unapologetic in the ways that we stand up for Black people. And we often talk about entering Black women as a tool for getting it right for everybody, right? Because if we get for those who have it the worst, it's a tide that lifts all boats, right? And so IRTH is a tool that centers Black women and people, but it's a tool for all people of color and all marginalized groups, right? So that's pretty much our way forward. I hope that will legacy that I'm super excited about, and that what we're already building and doing.
Do you think there's opportunities, especially with respect to the research part of this? What I like is how you're framing this, because I use the value proposition of saving money in our state of Ohio, is that, you know, you take the research and show how we can say, for us, Medicaid, you know, we can show that by using doulas, we can save every incidence of a birth that doesn't have to go to a NICU. We're saving you $1,891. That's the cost savings, right? By, you know, expanding the pilot, you know, phase 2 and all these things. Like, is that kind of your phase 2? You know, I love what you're able to do by expanding. So, you know, just break it down for us even a little bit more granular. And are there other ways you need us to plug in Ohio? You know, we have Cleveland Clinic right here in our backyard. Let us know what we can do in our state to help further your work. We have this collaborative around the table right here. So I don't want you to leave here without letting us know what we can do right here for you.
No, I appreciate that. You know, I mean, my ask is always this, you know, pretty much the same. Like, how can we empower the community to download IRTH and leave their review, right? Typically, when we get to bring health systems in, it's often because we already have reviews on them. IRTH is a free app. It's available in the Google Play and Apple App Store. And to remember that we accept reviews from the birthing person, but we also accept reviews from partners. We accept reviews from doulas and hospital-based midwives. All our reviews are anonymized. Our reviews have to be approved by our moderators before they're released into our searchable database. And so we have a number of things around safety as well in the features. But how can we pick a city, whether that's Cleveland or Columbus, and say, hey, let's start getting some reviews in as a community using this resource, and then using that to generate data that allows us to now target a hospital. And then, you know, can you share about IRTH on your social media platforms? Can you share about IRTH newsletters? We have a toolkit that we'd be happy to share. I can send the link back out for distribution because we definitely need support. We are a nonprofit project. And so we're always grateful for those who believe in our mission and our vision. It can help us spread the word. And the other thing that I will say is that, you know, when I ask people to support, take some time to actually, if you have someone who's given birth in the past 2 or 3 years, to help them go through it. IRTH is not just a free-form commenting space. It is a structured review process because it is designed to generate data. And what I've learned about our community is, like, sometimes we don't necessarily believe that what happens to us matters, right? Like, I think in many ways, white women are socialized to think that everything that happens to them matters, and they're going to tell you about it, which is great sometimes. But I think we kind of just move on. We're just like getting over it. Sometimes it may not be a pleasant experience, so we don't want to recall. So whatever you can do to actually sit with a person and do the review with them would actually be such a powerful gesture. And my true ask that not just you tell, but that you sit with someone. The birthing review will take about 8 minutes. And I'm always saying, if Geico can convince us that we can take 15 minutes to save 15%, we can take 8 to 10 minutes to save Black birth, okay? So I'm asking all of us to take 8 minutes to help to sit with a birthing person, a new parent, a dad, to leave a review in service of our work.
Well, again, I am impressed every time I see you in person. I just have to hug you every time I see you because, again, the work is hard, it's challenging, and you are always such a bright light. And this has been, when Jalise said, "Can I do this?" It was just an automatic yes, which is why I'm like, is this happening? Are we doing this? Is this happening? And she knew we could pull this together. And I'm very happy. And I want to just give you the opportunity to give a closing, but I want to just wrap up and summarize what I heard you say. And I'm actually going to end on what you just said. So much of what we know happens to us in infant mortality is around toxic stress. And I think you just said it so well. We are taught structural racism, slavery has taught us that what happens to us doesn't matter. It is the remnants of slavery impact us as a people so much. It's why we have low incidences of breastfeeding. It's why we have so many things that we see in the community, because we have to move on and we have to not let things impact us, right? But we need the people like your father to believe in us. And if my baby wants to be a bird watcher, I'm gonna get her some binoculars, right? We need the people to see the visionaries in us before we even see it in ourselves. And that is what helps us to be the women who we can be today. And so I'm so proud and I'm so excited to be here with you today. And I am honored to share this Zoom screen with you today. And I want to give you your opportunity to have some closing statements. But I think that you talked so much about how we have a unique opportunity. And I just continue and I will pray for you, because in the moments when it does get tough, and even doing healthcare technology, it's great when we get the grants, it's great when we get the yeses, but the no's are hard. And it's funny because sometimes you get 150 yeses and you just get one no, and the one no can just knock you down, right? But we keep persevering because that's what we do. And I see you, I feel you, I hear you. And thank you so much for being here with us today. And with that, I want to give you a closing and then we'll kick it right back over to Jalise.
Okay, well, thank you so much. That made me so full, Jazmin. I'm so in awe of your work. And so when I saw your name as the moderator, I was equally excited and equally all in, right? And so it takes all of us. It's going to take all of us. And I'm really grateful for the ways that we have built out a work that we own and that we share and that we support. The only thing I want to say is what I always say, which is whatever the question, the answer's in the community. And so what the folks here are researching and thinking about, there's a model here that tells us the answers are in academics and, medical journals, and that's cool and all. But whatever research question anyone here is toying with, I promise you the answer's in the community. And when we can actually get community-centered solutions, have community-driven data, have community-derived approaches, that is where we win. That is where we win. So I just want to leave that along with a personal mission to all the mothers out there who are trying to make it work. I see you. I've done it. I've not done it, on any given day. And just to remember that it's a day-by-day journey. Some days are better than others, and always give yourself grace. Give yourself grace. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Jazmin. Thank you, Kimberly, for both just being awesome examples of just phenomenal people, humanity. And with that, we will do our formal closing. What can you do today? You can schedule a research, equity, accessibility, diversity, and inclusion consultation at spark.case.edu with our team. You can sign up to attend future programming and join our listserv, review CTSC DEIA resources. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'll mention it one more time. We are hosting the Black Maternal Health Equity Summit on Sunday, April 14th from noon to 4 at Cleveland State University. Registration, food, and parking are complimentary thanks to our generous sponsors. And we hope that you will join us. Thank you again, Jazmin and Kimberly, and have a great afternoon, everyone.